introduce our next speaker. The topic is Internal Sunshine of the Spotless Development Environment with Sarah Kaiser. Her pronouns are she and her. Sarah has spent most of her career developing technology in the lab, from virtual reality hardware to satellites. She got her PhD in physics by starting plasma fires with lasers, Python, and Jupyter notebooks. She's also written tech books for folks of all ages, including ABCs of Engineering and Learn Quantum Computing with Python and Q#. As a cloud developer advocate for Python at Microsoft and a Python Software Foundation Fellow, she finds all kinds of new ways to build and break OSS tools for data science and machine learning. When not at her split ergo keyboard, she loves boating in the Seattle area, laser cutting everything, and playing with her German Shepherd Chewy. And I'd also like to add, you can submit Q&As for Sarah's talk in Venulist. So Sarah, I'll hand the microphone over to you. Let's welcome Sarah to the stage.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is my first in-person PyCascades. I've been to a couple of the remote ones over the pandemic, but I'm just so excited to be here. My name is Sarah, as noted. This is Chewy, who I'm pretty sure I'm a glorified kibble delivery service for. He does sit up on the couch like that while I'm coding. But yeah, I also enjoy playing Final Fantasy, and you can usually find me somewhere out on either a kayak or I am restoring a 1979 motorboat. And I like engine grease is sometimes very satisfying, just not mixed with keyboards. So the title of this talk, you may have heard it as the title of a movie, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I found out via Wikipedia rabbit holing that it's actually from some romantic poetry from the 1700s. In particular, a piece called Eloisa to Abelard by Alexander Pope. And this was a series of love letters between two people, and as I was kind of like reading through, I was like, wow, I kind of wish my dev tools would actually talk to me like this. Like labor and rest that in equal periods keep, obedient slumbers that can wake and sleep. So, you know, thinking about this, I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds like containerization. Like, I would love if my entire workflow was just poetry like this. Unfortunately, I think in general development is not always poetry, and so we hear words and things that aren't pleasant. So I had a question for folks here in person. What are some things that you hear, like whether it's in discussions with your colleagues or maybe in chats, that you don't like to hear? It doesn't work, yeah. Did you get that email? I'll send you a screenshot. Yeah, so there's some things are not poetry. I think my least favorite is it doesn't work on my machine, because that's about as specific as, where are you? I'm not in Detroit. Okay, cool. That really, you know, obviously that's the start of how you would start debugging, but, you know, this being one of my least favorite things to hear, I want to, with this talk, try and show you how we can turn that into poetry with some developer tooling. So I'll basically go over dev containers, what they actually are, and relate them to stuff that hopefully you've seen before. And then go through two kind of use cases where I've found it really, really helpful to work with in either collaboration or teaching. And yeah, we have the Q&A on Venulist. You can probably find me out at the Microsoft booth afterwards too, so if you have any questions, please feel free to do that. So what are dev containers? You've probably heard the term containers or containerization. Maybe you work with them regularly, but in general, when we're talking about containers, that usually is talking about how we run code. So it's a way of separating the code you're working on from how it gets run. It also makes it really easy to kind of run the code then elsewhere, whether that's on the cloud or to scale what you're running. Usually the kind of platforms or tools that folks use for this are like Docker or Kubernetes. I am a Docker user. I still Kubernetes scares me. Enter dev containers. Dev containers are kind of like a superset of all of this that takes not only the containerization for your code, but adds in kind of explicit configuration for the environment where you're working with your code. So that's like your IDE, all the settings, paths, environment variables, everything like that, that may not be like literally a part of the actual execution of the code, but something that you want set up that somebody might need to work with your code. And this is all actually based on an open source project. The specification is all open source. If you go to containers.dev, you can find all of the, basically all the configuration settings, supported templates. And so, you know, when I think of this practically, I use VS Code fairly regularly as my usual IDE. Thanks for the applause. But the cool thing is, since the dev containers thing is an open spec, we're actually seeing other IDEs pick up support for this format. So as of 2 weeks ago, JetBrains Rider has added support for this. And I think it's coming down the pipe for a few other products as well. But it'll be really nice because then whether, you know, if you're a PyCharm user and your coworkers use VS Code, you know, you can actually even share most of the common like editor configuration as well. But yeah, so once you, like, in the same way that we could run code containers in lots of different places, dev containers basically run in the same subset. So usually you're going to either be using them locally. To do so, you do need to have Docker installed, and that is an exercise in itself. But once you have it installed, you don't have to interact with Docker, VS Code, or whatever your editor will interact with that for you. The other main place that I end up using them is in Codespaces, which is a cool new GitHub service, which we'll talk more about. And as I showed on the previous slide, there's lots of other kind of cloud hosting services for compute, like Gitpod and devenv that also support kind of parsing of this open spec. So what does it actually mean to have a dev container literally? It's a JSON file. So really all you need is a name for it and a pointer to a Docker image is basically the most minimal you can make it. But this JSON file will have kind of 3 categories of things that it's talking about. One is kind of the code containerization. So like we talked about, that can be a Docker file, that could be a Docker compose if you've got some fancy stuff going on. And you could pick a template from the containers.dev folks. They have a bunch of kind of default pre-configured environments you can choose from. You can also pick features. So those are kind of like if you have the container that you want for your code, but you have a favorite CLI tool that you want to be a part of that. But you don't want to like have to go edit a Docker file. You can use a feature to kind of like tape that on top. And those are all mainly community contributed and maintained by the containers.dev folks. So like there's a repo that has all of the features that are kind of supported. You can go through and take a look at those. In general though, the trade-off can be, it can slow things down a little bit. So I kind of view features as a way of like, I've got something that's working for me. I just want to try it with this thing added on. I don't want to mess with the rest of my Docker setup. And then if it's something I do need, I can migrate it in later. And the last thing that dev container.json file will have is the settings for the non-code parts of this. So settings for your editor, your theme, what extensions you want installed. Everything I'm going to mostly show, everything I will show you here today is through VS Code, just because it does have the best support for this right now. But yeah, as noted, because there are different editors, all the settings may not exactly translate one-to-one, but I think that's kind of on the roadmap for kind of improving over time. But right, so we have the dev container.json file. I'm a scientist, so I usually like making things explicit better than implicit for reproducibility's sake. So I usually actually just add a Docker file at the get-go, even if it's just that one first line, because invariably I will probably have things that I want to add to that. This is probably my most common one, which basically starts with a mini conda image, adds Mamba to make my environment installs go fast, or go burr, and then creates an environment that I have with the spec and base. But if all of that seems really complicated, you can actually just go straight with a template so for all of those files. If you, in VS Code, install the remote development extension, that has a bunch of cool stuff, but includes the dev container kind of support for VS Code. And there's all kinds of kind of like wizards or walkthroughs there that'll let you pick different pre-made settings for everything. You can also browse all of those again on containers.dev/templates. So hopefully that kind of covers at least what a dev container is. Code containers plus describing the rest of the development experience. So how might we actually go about using these? Raise your hand if you have contributed to or maintain an open source project. Okay, for the record, that was most everyone here. So you're all probably familiar with some headaches in this space of either you've got a bunch of PRs you have to review, but that people didn't necessarily follow the contributing guidelines. You're trying to develop a new feature or use a feature, and like the CI isn't finishing or you can't repro what's in the CI. This all really is not poetic. So, I mean, I guess there would be an interesting proposal to make CI logs poetry, but we'll move that to a SpecFic conference. So what if I would propose you could, as you're filing an issue or maybe working on a PR or something, you could just share a dev container JSON file and say, hey, you know, I ran into this issue. Here's a dev container that reproduces it. And so, you know, if somebody wants to actually go poke around, normally you would do things like go copy all the logs, copy version numbers, and usually there's like a few different back and forths between folks trying to like, and that can be a lot of overhead. So, but if I can just say, hey, here's a full description of what I need, what you need to make this happen, that can be really helpful. So that's one kind of direction. But what if I said you could do this in the browser? So I am very often not on my nice computer, and I'm like on my crappy personal computer that's like a Chromebook from we don't know how long ago. It can't run my dev containers. I don't think I could get Docker installed on it. So Codespaces is a really cool opportunity for that, which is basically you can take those dev containers that you'd be running locally and run them on free cloud compute from GitHub, basically in exactly the same fashion. So anyone with a GitHub account has 60 free hours. You have, if you're an education or an enterprise customer, you may have more. But it's just really neat. Your browser now becomes your actual IDE. And by default, it usually goes to VS Code, but you can also configure it to have a JetBrains front end, or if you're doing notebooks, you can have Jupyter Lab or just a notebook directly. And yeah, it allows you to really work on, not that you should be looking at reviewing PRs while you're on vacation, but you could hypothetically review PRs from the beach on your iPad. Not saying this from personal experience. So when you create these code spaces, you do also have these nice options of picking kind of what size of backend that you want to use. You know, if you're just reviewing some small formatting things, maybe the 2-core, the smallest here. Like honestly, when I'm doing this stuff practically, I usually default to the smallest, and I will only bump it up if I need to. And there are also, I think in preview right now, GPU-based backends. So if you do a lot of machine learning stuff, that can be a cool option for you as well. But this was like kind of once I realized I could do this, this was like the killer app for me. So I have a project, I've got dev containers set up for it. Someone submits a PR but has like questions about it. I can just go on GitHub, go to the actual page for the PR, and where you could normally like say, oh, I want to check out this PR, you can just open the code space right from that PR in your browser. You don't have to mess up or like clone or set up anything locally, and you can just go poke around with it. If they push updates, it will, you can pull them into that code space, and it's just kind of like this nice little, I don't know why Polly Pocket came to mind, but nice little container for working on PRs with folks. So I think that's been a really cool and really helpful thing for me as a maintainer to help just more quickly get back to people on PRs and stuff. So it is much more poetic than to say, rather than send a screenshot or whatever, I'll send you a link to my dev container. So the other kind of main use case I proposed sharing here was around teaching. How many folks here have had to lead a sprint or like a tutorial workshop sort of thing? Nice. So a lot of you had experience doing this. Raise your hand again if over half the time was spent getting people to install things correctly. All right, that is basically the same number of hands. So yeah, this is a huge, huge frustration, whether you're an attendee or someone who's trying to learn or onboard to a project. It's just something that never feels very good. But dev containers can help us with this. So if you are an instructor, whether it's like for a course or maybe for an open source project themselves, I mentioned the templates earlier. So dev containers themselves, the dev containers org, maintains a bunch of templates, but GitHub Education also has put together all kinds of cool dev containers and all of the GitHub education stuff set up. So you can just say, I would like data science with Python and have all your repos set up and configured nicely ready to go with dev containers. Another cool thing that kind of makes doing these workshops at scale nicer is setting up pre-builds. So if you, again, have a repo or a project that has dev containers set up for it, on GitHub, you can set up basically pipelines to automatically build and cache those code spaces ahead of time. So just like if you're building these dev containers locally, we all have probably waited for Docker containers to build. Sometimes it can take some time. But having that all pre-cached basically means when a user walks up and clicks, make me a code space, you're mostly just network download bound at that point, which is way better. When I was first testing some of these features, I found there's a 10-minute timeout for the build process. So you do have to get it under 10 minutes. If you want to do something where it's not everybody working on their own machines individually, but they're actually kind of working on the same project together, you can use LiveShare with dev containers. So LiveShare is a really cool VS Code extension that basically allows you to take your VS Code window, whether it's a local one, whether it's one running in a code space in your browser, and just send the URL to someone and they join in that editor. Like you see, kind of like when you work on Google Docs or Microsoft Docs, you see their little cursors moving around. You actually see people's cursors and they can edit and work with you in that same VS Code window. So if you're trying to maybe you're pair programming with someone, you don't want to send screenshots back and forth, or you don't want to, maybe just Docker on their machine isn't working right now. So you say, okay, hey, hop into my VS Code, we can work together on this. So I've actually used these personally, doing live streaming and live coding on Twitch, where I put in the Twitch chat actually the LiveShare link to where I was actually working. And so I had people on stream that was just kind of on view only. I did not give them any edit permissions. I will say it has very good kind of like fine-grained permission controls and does default to no permissions. So, but yeah, it was really fun, a really fun way to have people kind of be more engaged when you're trying to teach or show something. And you also know then that if they go and spin it up later, they're also in the same they're using the same dev container as you, so hopefully nothing will be different for them. So as kind of a case study for this, I had been working with some of the folks at NumFocus and helped the NumPy project actually set up Codespaces for their project. This was really, really fun, and from their perspective, they run a lot of community calls and a lot of sprints. And so this was a opportunity. They had like a bunch of other CI custom bespoke infrastructure to try and achieve something like this, but it was a big maintenance problem. So once we kind of got this set up for them, now they're using it in their kind of like sprints. And if you want to try it too, maybe come to the sprints on Monday, or if you have a project that you want to set this up for, I will be here on Monday and am happy to help you get that set up. But yeah, so with the time I have left here, I wanted to just kind of show you in real life what this looks like and clicking through some of these things. The repo that I'm going to be working on, you can see the short link there, or you can scan the QR code. Let me tell PowerPoint it doesn't get to. Oop. So here is that repo that link takes you to. And yeah, so like if you have now clicked on this link, you've gotten to this page. You could just go right here, and you can see I've opened some Codespaces already. It said potential happiness, and I was having demo issues earlier today, so I'm not deleting this one. We're just gonna go with this one. But you can see, like, yeah, this one is running. You can see you can launch Codespaces on different branches. I don't have any other branches on this one yet. But this is basically, once you have it built, pretty much how fast everything spins up. And it should literally be identically, the same as if you were running it locally. Now, sometimes I have like generally 1 million browser tabs open, so actually keeping this in my browser is not super sustainable. So as a part of the remote development extension, like this is kind of like where, let me make this bigger. There, hopefully that's readable. Yeah, so the button that's added here in the bottom left, this is like kind of the remote development hub, if you will. But if I click that, I can actually take this code space that I started from GitHub and is in my browser. I can open it on my desktop VS Code install, which is honestly what I usually do because as with a bajillion browser tabs, my browser is liable to crash. So I don't like using that. So yeah, that's one of the really nice features. The other is you also get this Remote Explorer panel on the side, which should show me. It's showing me the code space I'm in, which is fine. But you can then see kind of some information about it. The idea is that code spaces are transient, so you can see here, basically they will be kept for 30 days. You can keep renewing that, but I think the general kind of mental model here is like, it's not a permanent development space, it's something where you can work on it, maybe finish the feature, you make commits to the repo just like you would locally, but at that point, it should be ephemeral. So I usually, if I'm going to walk away from a code space, I try to make sure I commit. If there's something I want to keep, I commit it. But yeah, you can see I spun this one up with the large machine just to make sure it built quickly. But let's see, I've got 2 minutes. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to show was, so if you have a new project and want to start up with adding dev container features. So again, this is now just my local client. I can, if I hit here, I can scroll down and I can add dev container configuration files. There's a lot of options here. Usually, I'm picking probably Anaconda here, and this is the feature stuff I was talking about. So like, if you want to add CLI tools or Apache stuff or ASCII Doctor, there are all kinds of different features here. These are all, like I said, community contributed, so you can pick. You can also, I think, go look up the source for the feature if you want. So it's basically just an install script here. Yeah. Let me come back. I've got 1 minute left. Let me come back to this real quick. Excellent. So yeah, as an instructor, the poetry would be, let's open it in Codespaces. Which, important note, you also don't have to have Codespaces tied to a repo, actually. So if you go to github.com/Codespaces, there's blank templates, like you can see here, that are just, it makes a temporary repo for you that you can add stuff to and later choose to make it a repo if you want. And as a side bonus, VS Code profiles are kind of related to this stuff, but basically give you a way to that front-end customization abstracted away from a project. So you can have everything about the VS Code part turned into a nice profile. So in conclusion, dev containers are a cool way that we can kind of encapsulate their entire development process, not just where the code gets run. Makes it really easy to collaborate with other people and can make teaching a lot easier and avoid having to spend your entire time block getting people set up. So the closing stanza here is, let's try my dev container. Thank you so much.